Welcome. My name's Graham Smith and I'm Chairman of the Judges and Officials Committee of the Arabian Horse Society of Australia. We are conducting a series of interviews with world-recognised judges and officials to help promote and enhance the training of judges. And it is my pleasure today to welcome and introduce Jonas Salzmann. Jonas will be familiar to some Australians as he has already visited here and judged at our inaugural Vedova show in Werribee in Melbourne in late 2019. Jonas is currently stable manager at Beit Al Arab Stud in Kuwait, a state-owned stud that specialises in Egyptian horses. But prior to this, Jonas had an interesting role in Europe and the Middle East, where he worked at a number of other studs, including with Joanna Ulstrom at the Ulstrom Training Centre in Belgium. Jonas is currently a national judge based in Kuwait, but he has already judged at many international shows in the UAE, Scandinavia, Europe, Iran, and as I mentioned, in Australia. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you, Jonas.
Thank you, Graham. It's my pleasure.
Great to have you here today. Jonas, you're currently calling in from Beit Al Arab Stud. I've had the pleasure to visit there. It's the most beautiful stud with beautiful Egyptian horses. Do you think you could just give us a little bit of an overview of what you do there and a little bit about the history and what Beit Al Arab does in regard to Egyptian horses?
Yeah, sure. Beit Al Arab is the state stud of Kuwait, and last year in 2020, we celebrated 40 years anniversary of Beit Al Arab. So it was built in 1918, and at the moment we have around 150 straight Egyptian horses of all different strains within the straight Egyptian horse breeding at the farm. Every year we have between 30 and 40 foals. And beside of the breeding, we are organizing national and international shows. We are organizing a lot of seminars and lectures for breeders, for horse owners, for newcomers, to introduce them more to the Arabian horse and to various fields of the Arabian horse, whether it is medical field, it is the historical field, training, feeding, all these kind of horse-related subjects.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I'll just reiterate what you said, that Beit Al Arab, you don't show your own horses, but you put on shows for, in effect, the Kuwaiti community. And you are there, in effect, to train and help grow your citizens in Kuwait. You offer all sorts of educational series where they can learn about breeding, about showing, and just sort of all those sorts of education things. So I think that's amazing, and it's that caring nature that I love. And for me, when I visited there, it flowed through to the staff. You could see how much the staff loved working there, but the horses as well. So yeah, congratulations, Jonas. It's a great thing that you and the Emir and all the staff are doing there. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So Jonas,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonas. Look, Jonas, you're a relatively young judge. Without giving too much away, you're in your early 30s, and you've already judged some very good international shows. And you've got all those experiences behind you, and you've judged in a number of different countries, and as I mentioned, including Australia. And you've quickly gained the respect of your fellow judges and various show organising committees in a relatively short period of time. I guess I want to know, what are some of the personal attributes or skills that you think a judge needs or should develop during their career? And in particular for young judges just thinking about or starting out in their career?
See, I think, first of all, it is very important to have a good general knowledge about horses in all different aspects, such as anatomy of horses, but also the knowledge about functionality of movements, correctness, the knowledge about the rules book of the countries or societies you're judging in, and general knowledge about the Arabian horse breed, including different strains, different types, and of course, probably the very most important thing is the love for the Arabian horse And you know, when you become a judge, it means that you have a lot of responsibility towards the future of the breed. This is what is very important to become a judge.
Yes, and I guess, Jonas, you're working in Beit El Arab, which is obviously a straight Egyptian stud. How do you train your eye, or how do you control those emotions when you have to go to a show and you judge a different type or strain of Arabian horse? You know, you mentioned before about going to shows and like all breed shows and learning about the structure of the horse and that. Any tips or tricks on how you might, you know, control that emotion, if you like, and how you might cope with that?
Yeah, I think it's a lifelong learning. It never really ends. I grew up in a family with horses. I used to ride as a child and as a teenager in not big competition, but small competitions. So I tried to visit as many farms as possible, see as many horses as possible, and always try to talk and learn and exchange knowledge with breeders, with fellow judges, with you know, experienced people in the horse industry in general, not only in the Arabian horse industry. This will definitely increase your you know, your knowledge and also widen your horizon if you're not only stuck within one you know, one part of the horse industry, whether it is riding or it is showing or it is breeding, endurance, eventing, all this. I think it's also important that, you know, judges or people who would like to become a judge are themselves involved with horses. Is it as a breeder, as a rider, or as a horse owner? Because from being around horses on a daily basis, you learn so much. You probably learn more than any book can teach you. Yeah,
good point, Jonas. Good point. You touched on, I think you were touching on having mentors and people that you looked up to. In Australia, we're trying to introduce a mentorship program, and I think that's a good thing to do. Obviously, you come from Germany, you've had a great background there, and I imagine working with your current boss, Klaus Best, and other people like Joanna Ullstrom, you've got some amazing role models. So for me, I still think about people that guided me when I was a young man, and I still think about some of the lessons they taught me.
Mm.
So Jonas, look, we'll move on to the next question, and it's similar to the first one, I guess. Look, you work in a world-class stud, Beit El Arab, there's no doubt about that. And on a daily basis, you see many amazing horses. But how does a young judge that may not have the same access to the volume or quantity of horses start to develop a good eye for a horse? I think that's a really important thing, is having an eye for a horse. How do we teach or develop that skill for our younger judges? And what can they do to increase their capacity or knowledge to be able to quickly evaluate any horse in a show ring environment? As you know, as a young person, you can look at one horse and you can spend 5 minutes judging and evaluating it on the sideline of a ring. But when you're in the ring and you only have a minute or a minute and a half to judge a world champion or whatever show you're at, you have to have that that ability to pick a horse and have a good eye for a horse. So any tips or any thoughts around that, Jonas?
Yeah, I think it really comes with experience. The more horses you're seeing, the more horses you're probably evaluating or judging with experienced people, is it as a probationer or even just visiting farms with you know, other experienced people who might give you tips, who might share their experience and their knowledge with you. It's very important, and this will definitely help you. I was lucky enough to, you know, meet experienced people who were willing to share their knowledge, but also, you know, I never hesitated of asking for you know, for help, for mentorship of people. I think that's very important.
Yeah. No, good point. Jonas, look, another question. Again, it sort of follows on from that last point, but it's about the Arabian rule books. You obviously have your Akaho rule books, but our rule books talk about judging ethics, and most of them use language such as a judge displaying ethical behaviours or displaying integrity. Can you talk about what a trainee or a probationary judge should do in this regard, given that each country or jurisdiction has differing rules around gifts, hospitality, but also differing cultural values? And how does a judge in today's global environment, with so many pressures, maintain their judging integrity and respect amongst their peers, show committees and competitors? And I'll just preface that. I'll just say, Jonas, you're on a journey in your career and you've already judged in Scandinavia, Europe, Iran, the UAE, and more recently Australia. So each one's slightly different, but how do you maintain your integrity and your ethics when you're going to different countries and different environments like that?
Right. See, I believe the most important thing is that you are always true towards yourself and always try to do your very best and use all your knowledge in order to give a fair judgment at any show in any country, wherever you judge. It is always important to follow the guidelines for the judges of the rule book in the countries you're judging in, because every country has a bit of different rules regarding scoring, regarding the shows. So I think it's important to, before you're traveling to a country, to always to always learn a bit about the countries, the rule books, the culture, whatever is going on in the country. It is definitely a unique opportunity to judge and visit many different countries, but it's important to do your homework before that. I think also what is important to keep in mind that as a judge, you not only represent yourself, you're always a representative of the country or of the stat book you are listed in.
Yes. Yeah, no, good points, Jonas. I think the point you make about doing your homework and preparation, and I've made the point before on this program that we think that our rules are similar. We see them written down in Australia, and we might be watching a live stream from a country and we think it's the same, but a lot of them are different. Until you're actually there and understand it, there are completely different rules. And the thing that I love the most too, Jonas, is when you visit countries, it's learning about a new culture. I think we always have to be respectful of their rules, their laws, and their religions, religious beliefs, those sorts of things. So judging in the ring is no different to being respectful about that particular culture of that country that you visit.
Definitely. It makes a big difference whether you're judging in Europe or you're judging in, for example, Saudi Arabia, Iran, or in any other country. Any other country, you should respect the rules of the country. You should dress accordingly. You should behave accordingly. So I believe for myself, it's always important to do a bit homework before you're traveling to a new country. Yeah. Not only as a judge, but also as a tourist.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an expert at that, being a tourist, I think, Jonas. But yeah, really good points. And I do the same thing. I always read as much information as I can. I read the rule book of the country and I learn about the culture, because you absorb so much more when you have that understanding.
Yeah.
But thank you. They're good points. They're good points. Jonas, as I mentioned, you've had a range of exposures worldwide. You've judged, as I said, from the UAE, Scandinavia, Iran, Europe, Australia, and you would have seen some trends. And I just want to ask you what trends you may have seen in the show ring that you think judges need to be mindful of. Now, sometimes good things happen. We have good trends, but I guess at times we see bad things start to creep in. But right. What are the things that you've seen that you're concerned about or you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think as judges and as international organizations, we have to work harder on the implementation of better welfare of horses at shows, not only at shows, at all horse-related events, whether it is shows, jumping, endurance, or eventing. The welfare of the horses should always be the priority of any horse event. So there should be definitely stricter rules and follow up on things as excessive clapping, bagging, gingering, and as well as for the hard stand-up, which, to be honest, most of the judges anyways don't really appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. As you know, some shows you go to, you mentioned noise. I don't think the Australian community would understand the sheer volume of noise at some of the shows, and it's gotten to a stage now where some shows have meters to measure the amount of noise that's coming into a ring. Now, that's slightly outside the remit or the role of the judge in the ring, but it's got to a silly stage with some of that, and that noise flows on. If you've got a class of yearlings and there's a lot of loud music and a lot of noise, it's you've got to think about the welfare of the horse.
It is true.
Yeah,
horses are terrified of so much noise, especially the yearlings or foals. You know, their first outing at a show, and you know, they have this horrible noise, this bagging and clapping, and you know, it's not a comfortable situation for a horse. Yeah. But you're right. In Australia, I guess you probably the guests or the audience behaves a bit better than at other shows in other countries. But there's also some positive trends, definitely, which I see at shows, especially in Europe. I know in Australia and in the States, you have it already since a long time, or you always had it. This is the riding classes and the amateur classes. I think those classes are very important, and they definitely showcase the versatility of the Arabian horse, and they're a very good way of bringing new breeders, new owners, and newcomers to forward to show their horses to the public and to enjoy showing.
Yeah, no, good points, Jonas. And you know, it's something I'm passionate about too. It's promoting amateurs and riding classes in Australia and overseas as well. I remember you and I had the pleasure of judging an amateur show in Holland, and I love it. Yeah. I just love it. You know, seeing versatile horses, the riders are laughing and having fun. You go to some of the big shows, you don't see the handlers laughing in the ring too often. But
That's true.
You see the riders and young handlers; they're so enthusiastic, and I think the horses.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That's how it should be, even on professional level.
Yeah, I wish it was.
Sometimes the professional can learn from the amateurs.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. Look, a similar sort of question, Jonas. Again, drawing on your experience worldwide judging, but also you've come from Germany, and I know they have a very solid foundation there with their riding horses and licensing and those sorts of things that have been ingrained into the German culture. But I guess I wanted to get your thoughts about conformation. Now, I know you, as I said, you're a relatively young judge, but in your sort of time, what are the concerns or what are the issues that you're seeing around Arabian horse conformation? Are we getting it right, or are there things that you're worried about?
See, I think we have to be very careful regarding the breeding trends of the Arabian horses, or let's say the Arabian show horses nowadays. You know, by trying to breed more and more refined horses and more refined heads, we are losing a lot of substance and correctness of the horses, such as substance and structure of the bones. I think the Arabian horse should always be kept as a functional horse, which can be used in so many disciplines. And we have to be very careful to not lose this functionality of the Arabian horse by always trying to reach more type, more refinement in the horses. There should always be a balance.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to switch back now to Beit Al Arab, but in your breeding program there, that takes precedence. You place a lot of emphasis on bodies, legs, that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that for a second or two?
Definitely. We're always trying to keep it in balance. You know, we're breeding certain strains, so we're going after the strains themselves, but also we're trying to improve our horses in the type, in the correctness of the body, in the bone structure, in the functionality of the horses. So there are many things which playing a role in our breeding, but we're always trying to improve as a whole and not only in one aspect.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jonas. Jonas, I often ask judges and friends and colleagues this question, and it's about what you think your legacy might be. Now, I know you're a young judge. You've only just started your journey in the Arabian horse world as a judge, but when you're retired or, you know, when you're a bit older, what do you want to look back at, and what do you want people to say about you, and what would your legacy be, or would you like it to be?
See, for me, the most important personal aspect as a judge is to always keep my integrity and to always be fair in my judgment. I probably would like to be remembered as a judge who judged based on knowledge and fairness, and to always kept the sort of responsibility towards the future of the breed in his mind.
Yeah, very important things there, Jonas. Yeah, without your ethics and integrity as a judge, you're nothing. Yeah, you have to maintain that, obviously. And, you know, for me too, personally, it's the legacy is that we leave this world or this planet in a better place. Now, whether it's the environment, climate change, or your family, and you leave behind a house, but for the Arabian horse, you know, I am a bit concerned that we make sure we leave it behind as a better animal, but I wonder sometimes whether we're doing that. But it's a great approach to have, Jonas, and yeah, I'd encourage you to keep maintaining your values and keep focused on that. Jonas, look, we're nearly at the end of the interview. I guess we spoke earlier on about that we're doing this to train and help guide our Australian judges in particular, and any new judges. Are there any other sort of tips or tricks or anything that you've learned along the way that you think the Australian judges might benefit by through your experience?
Yeah, I think it's very important to always, as a young judge, and even as an older judge, as a more experienced judge, to always keep in mind that you never stop learning, and always try to, you know, take as much as possible from seeing as many horses as possible. Always try to speak with more experienced people, with breeders, with fellow judges. So it is really a never-ending learning curve, and I think this is something we should always keep in mind, that, you know, we never stop learning.
Yes, yeah, good points. You know, horses, even from a riding point of view, they can make a fool of you very quickly, but from judging as well, you know, every time I set foot in the ring, and you will be the same, you always see something different and you learn something. You know, there's something nice or a confirmation fault or something happens and you think,
Definitely.
oh, I haven't seen that before, and you put it back in the memory banks, and that forms part of who you are and adds to your memory bank.
That's right.
Well, look, Jonas, it's been great talking to you. We really appreciate the time you've taken to do this. We hope that after COVID settles down, that we'll see you back in Australia. For those that don't know, I was lucky enough to be your chaperone and Alcides Rodriguez chaperone, and we had a lot of fun around Werribee, going to the zoo and the mansion, and just getting to explore a little bit of Melbourne. But you're well liked, and I know a lot of people want to see you back in Australia. So hopefully one day we'll get you back there. But Jonas, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I wish all the judges, the new judges, the probation judges, a lot of success. And I really hope that we will see more Australian judges in the future at international shows.
Thank you, Jonas. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.